All right. Hey, I am excited to jump into a great conversation here. I mean, I'm prophesying it's going to be great. I assume it's going to be great because I'm joined by a great man, an OG friend of mine from back in the day, Coach Barsh, RJ. Thanks for jumping on here and being a part of this process of promotion conversation. It's good to have
I'm
you.
glad to be here, Pastor Sam. True OGs. I mean, 10, 15, maybe like 20 years, and we go back.
I
So
think so.
we both have been able to see each other's process
Yep.
of promotion,
Yep.
actually front row seats to that experience.
Yep. Yeah. I feel like it's proof that we're actually starting to get a little bit older when you start talking about being friends with somebody for 20 years. Oh man, shoot, we're those guys now.
We are those guys now.
Yeah. So as we'll get into this, but one of the things with this book, as we've been releasing it and having different conversations around it, I was first putting it together and looking for people that I knew in my space and going, okay, who could speak into those preparation seasons, those hidden seasons, how that works. I was honored that you were willing to put make a contribution. And there's one of the chapters I talk about obscurity being creating a perfect place for repetition, and you were able to kind of make a deposit really into the book. And so I'm excited for anyone to read it. You're going to get a chance to see that firsthand. We'll talk about that a little bit now, but give us a quick update. We met back in the day up in the Seattle area, and of those who are local there, we actually met more in like the Puyallup, Tacoma. That's how you know you're a local, if you can say that word. And then, man, you kind of made a little bit of a journey, and now you're repping Boise State here as a basketball coach, and it's been an exciting journey. So get us a little up to speed on your life and your family.
Yeah, so from Tacoma Community College, I decided God decided to help lead my family to a new place, and we went all the way to Lakeland, Florida, and went to Lakeland, Florida, at Southeastern University, which is a premier Assemblies of God school, raising up leaders all across the globe. And to be able to serve at that university as a basketball coach was a lot of fun, challenging in every regard, but created a winning tradition. Had some Final Four runs and some championship teams, so it was an exciting time. But with anything, when you have your hands to the plow and you're working and you're putting in that time and that deliberate practice, opportunities do arise. And the right one showed up simply because of Leon Rice here at Boise State and how he stewards his program. It's something that I couldn't say no to get closer to the Northwest, and to be coaching at the Division I level. It is definitely a promotion from where I was at. Same thing is happening though. There's 94 to 84 feet of hardwood, and then a basketball and 2 rims. So at any rate, still coaching the same game with the same demographics of young men.
Yeah. And that's one of the things I've loved about you. Obviously weaving your faith into every sphere, as a man of God, as a leader, as a coach, as a father. And I think that's always shown through in you, RJ, is that it's never been just about maybe the position, you know what I mean, or the job. It's been about you raising up, calling out the greatness in young men, you know what I mean, and really anybody, you know what I mean, that kind of comes in contact with your world, your sphere, and your leadership. And so I've loved seeing that, and we get little glimpses in and out of the journey, but I love what you're about, and so I'm thankful that you're a contributor into this book. And so you've had your own journey of that promotion, that process. I think one of the things that was almost sad for me, and I'm sure you've seen it as a coach or in just other areas of life, even as a leader in different spheres, you see so much in people and on people and call and destiny and potential, and you want to see them through it. And then somewhere along the way, right? Those hidden seasons, the overlooked seasons, the hard work seasons, people get discouraged, disillusioned, disconnected, and find themselves throwing in the towel, find themselves pulling themselves out of the game. A lot of times I say kind of aborting the process that God has us on. And maybe we're just days, moments, weeks, months, years away from what God has, and then we end up, disconnecting from it. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, in some of what
Yeah,
you've seen.
yeah. I think sometimes what happens, this happened to me in my personal life, is you have so early success that then makes you feel like it's always going to be that way.
Mm,
Right. So you jump onto the scene with a huge event or a big speaking gig, or you win a big game early in your career. And then you start to believe that it's always going to be this way.
yep,
And then you realize that no, there's a process to sustaining a high level of excellence.
it's
And
good.
it's not going to be coincidental. Like, you don't want to have coincidental excellence. Right? You want it to be who you are.
Well, that's
And
good.
and the only way for me to have been able to maneuver through that process is to coach at a place where my wins didn't make the ESPN ticker, but neither did my losses.
Mm,
So
yeah.
I was above the struggle, right? Like, I'm coaching, but I was under the radar. So
Mm,
I could really take my games and go watch film and be critical of myself because there wasn't a critical public.
yep.
And I think
Man.
sometimes we give our information and our stuff so fast to the masses that then they become critical, and then we abort the process, when really you got to be in the backside of the desert for some period of time,
Yep.
just learning yourself
Yep.
before you are thrown into that position where now everything is scrutinized in public.
Yep.
And so going through that coaching journey, from going from high school to junior college to NAIA, which is right under Division II, to now Division I, where our practices may make ESPN at this point, right? So
Yeah.
there's cameras everywhere, so there's no more obscurity in that regard.
Yep.
But you have to prepare in places where those things don't exist, so when they do, those things are not who you are.
Man, that's so good. And that's one of the things I talk about, is that obscurity is actually a gift from God, right? Hidden seasons is actually God creating like the perfect space for you to make the mistakes, figure things out, iron out, your world, your life. And obviously, not, there may be a skill that you're working out, but there's also your personal life you're working out. You know what I mean? Your thinking, your heart, your emotion, your faith, your habits, everything about you. You know what I mean? And I really think, we as a general rule resist obscurity. We want to get rid of it in our world, but actually, it's really the grace of God where He creates those hidden seasons. And if we try to break out of that too fast, we can end up harming ourselves and our career. And I could imagine that as for an athlete, you think, man, I want my shot, I want my moment. I need people to see, and then all of a sudden you get people to see too quickly, and now your reputation is, man, you screwed up your moment because you wanted it now, and maybe you need a little more time in the cooker. Have you seen anything like that?
No, I definitely seen that. Simply because opportunity sometimes looks like the reward, and it could be the disaster.
Mm,
Like,
wow.
I remember a pastor saying it like this: arriving at a great place premature makes it not a great place for you.
Wow.
So, like, you want to arrive when you develop those habits and those routines and those systems in your own life to create a sustaining moment. The thing about obscurity in my life is I realized how to encourage myself.
Mm, Yeah. Yeah.
because usually obscurity is a sense of, loneliness, or there's not a lot of high fives around you.
Yeah.
So even the Bible, there's people that he encouraged himself
Yeah.
in the Lord. So
Yes.
once I learned how to do that, I was out of the sense of when is it my turn? It was more of take my time.
Yeah. Wow. That's really good.
And to realize that if any place that there is, God is there. So if the place is obscure and God's there, I'm good with being there.
Yep. I love that. How amazing is that? I mean, I kind of lean into the story of David because he's pretty iconic in that process, right?
Hmm.
And I always think about, he has this massive anointing moment where the prophet, you're the next king, oils over the head. It's the whole scene. And then he goes back with the sheep. I mean, like, talk about like an anticlimactic moment. You know what I mean? When you just had this big scene happen, and now it's like, all right, well, this was cool. now, now I'm back putting in the work. You know what I mean? And in the hidden season, and no doubt it was in those sort of wilderness, side of the hillside with the sheep moments where he cultivated that connection with God, because we know he was such a just a passionate worshiper, but also where he put in the work. You know what I mean? Because when he comes to his giant Goliath moment, what part of his confidence is the fact that he knows who God is, right? He knows who he is and kind of called to his moment, but also his confidence was in the repetition. The confidence was, hey, I took out the lion, I took out the bear, I'm taking this guy out. You know what I mean? So he wasn't like he just kind of closed his eyes,
Hmm.
swung
It
that
wasn't
sling around
coincidental.
and hoped for the best. Um, I love what you said. Not you don't want coincidental success. You know what I mean? You want sustained. That's really good.
When I think about that story, I think about David going back to the sheep, and I think about uh, kind of the inverse of it, and how the sheep looked at David. Like, oh, they were excited David came back.
Yeah.
I mean, and so they rocked with David. So even in those obscure places, the thing that we are probably to serve the most is still there.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's still there. Like, no matter where I'm coaching, it could be this. If I'm in a gym, there's still going to be a young man or a young lady who wants to get better.
Yeah. Yeah.
And developing those reps, like you said, develops that confidence. And when he went out there, he knew he had the he knew if he missed, he's going back to his sheep and they'd be happy to take him. But he also knew that he was prepared for it.
Yeah. I
Like
love
there
it.
was no fear and no fear in missing that moment.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. You know, um, I just recently I'm embarrassed to say it took me this long to finally watch The Last Dance about MJ. Man, you can't be. I mean, I'm just inspired off the Richter scale after watching that. And but you always think about MJ or any of those high performers, right? And even at D1, um, how do you get to that place as an athlete where when it's 1.5 seconds on the shot clock or on the clock, and you're taking the game winner's shot to where it's less of like a crazy moment and more of a, hey, this is just what I do. You know what I mean? Like, so
Yeah,
I'm ready for that moment.
it's exactly what you said. It becomes this is what I do after a certain number of reps.
Mm,
Like you practice the practice, the practice, the practice. You put yourself in that situation where there's low risk because there's no game being played at that moment. And you do that every single day. That's all as coaches, all we do is try to simulate the pressure
mm,
so that the player can then feel the pressure. And so when the moment is real, their body and their mind are in agreement that I've been here before.
Wow, it's really good.
And then they can lock in and they can be present. And that's what's so cool about David is because he had so many reps in his own armor that even taking something that looks better didn't work for him.
Yeah, wow.
So like if Michael Jordan or a great player who has reps doing it the way that they've been taught gets into that big moment and tries to be somebody else,
Yeah,
it's not gonna work.
yeah,
You have to be your gift in that moment. And then it's just what you do.
yeah,
And that's why you see people when the guys hit those shots, it's like,
yeah,
what? Like people are surprised, but the people who know the young man getting the reps, like when Isaiah Thomas hit that game winner against Arizona in
yeah,
the Pac-12 tournament or Pac-10 tournament, where he did the hezi and the pull-up, and then he hits the shot, and then he, excited on the sideline. I just remember texting him, that's a 10,000 reps.
yeah.
I could turn the TV, as soon as I saw him going to the hezi, TV off, you dub one. Like simply because it became second nature
Yeah,
to see yourself rise to the occasion
yeah,
because you have carved out so much time
yeah,
in running through the rep
yeah,
and missing the shot and getting it back up and missing the shot and getting back to then you made it 1,000 times. And now, even if you were to miss that shot in that moment, it's not defeating you because you
right,
did what you worked on.
right. That's really good.
Right. A lot of times, if you miss that shot and it hasn't been what you worked on, that's when people mentally become depressed because now they're like, man, I missed the biggest moment trying to be somebody else.
Mm,
That's a lot to carry.
yeah, wow. And I think that you talked about like being physically, you have the reps, mentally have the reps. Talk about that maybe in your own life, kind of the mental preparation or readiness moment, because sometimes you don't people don't perform kind of under the pressure, and it's less about maybe their physical skill and maybe more about their mental emotional state, your own journey with that, staying in the moment or being able to win when it matters, as well as for athletes. How does an athlete, I mean, you're an athlete but also you're coaching young athletes, how does an athlete kind of win that mental game, that mental battle, when the pressure's there?
Well, I mean, the way that I explain it is I don't even try to win that. I try to make sure I'm in control of that at all times. So it's never a game I'm going to lose mentally.
Gotcha.
And then the main thing is to help them understand that what you deposit, you withdraw.
Mm. Wow.
So if you want to deposit presence and mindfulness and peace of mind, you've got to be depositing those things in moments where you have time.
Yeah.
Because you never know when those things are going to show up and be strong for you. You never know when you're going to need a slingshot.
Yeah.
Right. So you have to be preparing for the moments you don't know that are coming.
Yeah.
And the way to do that is through slowing down, through prayer, through supplication, and then having that spirit right. And so for me, the mind part is I let the players study the greatest athletes of all time. And one thing that they all will see is they have presence of mind. And then you even hear announcers say, he had presence of mind to make that read. He had presence of mind to make that audible. He had presence of mind to see that play. And the reason he had presence of mind is because he wasn't fantasizing about a failed future and he wasn't dreaming about a great success. He was just in the moment he had.
Ready for it, ready to take it, ready to be in that space.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe just a few moments here. Obviously, preparation, process of promotion. You shared that story about Isaiah Thomas. You in D1 coaching level. So you're right there. You're working with athletes at the top of the game. Many of them obviously aspiring to the NBA. How are you kind of getting them prepared, or or what is those differences, right? I mean, you kind of shared a little bit of that story of, you know, and watching, you know, The Last Dance. It's like, how much work are people willing to put in the preparation, kind of the deposit withdrawal? You know, what do you see as the difference maker and people who excel beyond, uh, you know, great D1 to actually getting in the draft versus those who just kind of, you know, career ends, move on?
The greatest separator is when a player has the ability to allow a teacher to see around the corner for them so they can be in the moment they're in. So they allow someone to be critical of their game so that their game can grow, because it's usually just a small accent on their game. Or take a harder step here, sprint this way. Hey, go get 3 offensive rebounds. Usually at the point where a player has a chance to be a pro, it's not a massive change.
Mm,
And so what I see hurts a lot of young men and women and anyone that wants to be a professional is we get really good at things we don't do. So we practice a lot of hours on moves we never use, and we build up a lot of confidence and skill sets no one needs because we enjoy them. So if you're going to be a pro, you have to find out, okay, what is my second nature skill set and what do they want? And then refine that to a T, and then be ready to perform in that scenario. And then anything outside of that is still deliberate practice, but it's not professional practice. Like I don't need Steph Curry doing post-up moves for 10 hours this summer with his back to the basket. It's still basketball, but it's not what we need. Golden State doesn't want him doing that.
right.
Right. So you have to have somebody who can help identify your role so they can identify where your role is going to become,
Yeah.
and then identify the reps you need to increase your opportunity to be great in that scenario.
Yeah. I love that. Now, what an important note there about being willing to take the coaching. And isn't that true? Like literally in every area of our life, as just men, as fathers, as husbands, as just literally, I feel like you could apply that to just every area of life. It's the separator. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Willingness to take input, willingness to go, all right, I need that help. I remember, you know, I feel like I've seen that in different seasons of my life, different areas, whether it be in areas in the financial area, in leadership, in communication, in parenting. When I have invited that coaching in, you know what I mean? And both of our kind of back in the Northwest mentors, Pastor Kevin Gerald, he would say, be easy to talk to about hard things.
Mm.
And I love that statement because that always resonates with me. I don't want to be the guy that people are nervous to correct. You know what I mean? Feel like they're walking on eggshells to call something out of my world. I mean, nobody likes being told that they're not doing something right or to make a change. Like, you don't usually instinctively like that when someone's coming into your world, especially maybe if it's a personal area of your life. But I want to be the guy that people are like, oh man, talk to Samuel whenever. Man, like he's open, he's ready. Like he'll take the coaching, he'll take the correction, he'll take the input. You don't got to worry at all. You know what I mean? And then the key is to actually make the adjustments.
Mhm.
Actually, not, don't just nod your head. Actually, go do
Like
it.
that's you got to get into it. In my world, the way I see it is in boxing, there's a corner man, and the corner man is telling the boxer what's coming and what to dodge and what to look for. And if you don't trust your corner man, you're gonna get knocked out.
Mm,
If you trust your corner man, your chances of winning are higher because there's another set of eyes right behind
right.
you. And he may be criticizing you to protect you
Yeah.
and criticizing you so you can win. But if you never trust that voice behind you, you always got to do this on how you see it. And the greatest of the greats have that whisper somewhere that can say, you shouldn't have done that. I would try it this way.
Yep.
And then trust that you can take that feedback. And I think when we're in obscure places, we develop the humility to need that
Yep.
and to crave that. because it does feel lonely. And then hopefully in those moments, a mentor or someone comes and grabs you and says, "Hey, try this."
Yeah.
Or I've been there before too. Here's what it looked like for me.
Yep. Man, I love that. I feel like we can keep going, but I want to respect
Yeah.
your time because you got to get out there and get the young men getting their reps in and getting after it, man. I appreciate you taking a few moments out, Coach. And you're a great friend. You're a great man, y'all. If you're not already following along, RJ or Coach Barsh's journey, what's Instagram, or what's the best way to kind of
Best way is usually on Twitter, Coach RJay Barsh, and that's Coach RJay and then BARSH. I am on Instagram, but I've been using that more just in basketball focus, and so Twitter is more inspirational, more me, I guess you could say. But follow the Boise State Broncos, our men's basketball team, support our young men. Great season ahead of us, and excited to get going, and thankful for the book that's coming out, the process of promotion. It's two things that everybody wants to go through. Everybody wants to get to the promotion, but do you want to go through the process? This book, I know, will help you and help all of us remember that there is a process to promotion.
Yeah.
So I look forward to hearing the reviews, people's lives changing from the book.
Yeah. Thanks, man. I appreciate that. Yep. Don't quit, y'all. Don't quit in the
Don't
process.
quit.
Stay in it. All right. God bless. Thanks, RJ. Appreciate you. And
all right, brother.
Check out The Process of Promotion. You can grab that on Amazon.com or direct on my site. Have an awesome day, everybody.